crystal blue water is where I love to be, having fun in the sunshine, leaving the problems behind. I've got to learn how to tune the world out. I really need to tune the world out. I've just got to tune the world out and leave all the problems behind for my peace of mind. Got to leave all the problems, leave all the problems. This is Cheryl Merrill, and it is Sunday, November 3rd, 2019. I think that there were some reactions to my Halloween satire, that people really wanted to know the real truth behind what I was trying to get across. It came very, very strongly that I was angry, and that is very true, because I wanted to say that, when you're doing well, and I was doing well back in the early 80s, while my peers were in college, I guess, not doing as well as me. And I went the route of just getting a job right away and working my way that way to be successful. And also singing on the side and considering taking some part-time college, at a local junior college for music and things like that. I was taking music theory classes, music copying classes, which is how you actually make a professional, the arrangements for people who just jot down things. You take it and you turn it into a professional music notation transcript. I was doing things like that, and I was going back to school and learning some things in electronics synthesizing. And I was working at Epson America for a couple of years there in Torrance, which is a really good company. And I had this RX-7 Mazda with a sunroof, and I was doing really well. I was having dates come over to this resort, Rancho Palos Verdes condo complex, in the early 80s, where I rented a couple rooms there from two different people. So I was there about a year and a half, and it was this wonderful resort, like brooks running through the condo complex, and a sauna and a jacuzzi and a resort pool and a rec room where you could go and watch TV and play pool. It was just incredible. Life was good back then. I was invited to go sailing to Catalina, and I was, doing really well. I mean, look, Tracy Austin came there eventually and was playing with Martina Navratilova on the tennis courts there. It was an amazing life I was coming into, in the early 80s. I had a good job and I had a good boss. And what happened was, what really the problem was, and I wish that I would have known better. I was going to this gym called Nautilus Gym, and I was meeting a couple people there. It was bad news. Meeting people at gyms is not a good idea. I didn't have any idea that I shouldn't be meeting people at gyms. It can lead you into a lot of trouble. That kind of mentality where people are lifting weights. It was introduced to me back then as something normal, but I don't think it's normal to go to gyms and work out with weights anymore. I no longer think that's normal. I think that a lot of problems can happen from going to a gym, and I paid a heavy price for going to that Nautilus gym on Avenue I in Redondo Beach, and I think actually that's where a lot of the problems in life really, really, the adversarial problems happened at that Nautilus gym, where I felt that I was being gang stalked there. I became paranoid. I met this guy named Kim Lynette, who went to Palos Verdes High School. He graduated a year previous. A year previous. He was this handsome man. Didn't tell me that he had already had a girlfriend, and he was leading me to believe that he was looking for somebody to live with him in his house, and leading me to believe, and then gave me introduced me to mushrooms. I met him at the gym. You see, that's the problem. I was meeting people at this gym, people who were gang stalking me at this gym, and who were doing crazy things at this gym, playing mind games at this gym. And it was just turned out to be a real destructive thing for me, that I was sacrificing my mental health to work out and stay physically fit at this gym. Okay. And so what happened was, I think I became a little delusional about myself. But the thing was that I was working at Epson America. I had a great job, and I eventually had to give up. My engine burned out, this GLC Mazda that I had taken up to Lake Tahoe because I put the wrong oil in this rotary engine. So they offered me this car instead of paying for a new engine, which was only $400. I should have done it. The salesman got a hold of me at the Mazda dealership and offered me an RX-7 sports car with a sunroof, and a beautiful blue color that I just couldn't, I didn't see it as a temptation. I just thought, I don't want to pay $400 for an engine. So they offered me this loan for 23% interest rate, and I didn't know that was a bad deal. Right, I didn't know it was a bad deal. So I took it, and something I really couldn't afford, it was $220 car payments. And I had almost paid off for that other GLC that I had. And so it was a real stupid thing that I did to accept this Mazda RX-7. And I think what had a lot to do with it was the people I was meeting at this gym. And, nothing was ever like strategized or anything. I was just influenced by whatever was in my environment. So I got this car, and I had no idea that it was going to make men jealous. I had no idea the effect it was going to have on people towards me. And what happened was that I was being spied on. I think when you begin to come up in the world, people start spying on you. I was living at this place in Rancho Palos Verdes where people like Tracy Austin and Martina Navratilova would play on their tennis courts there. And it was like a resort. It was a pool resort with a rec room and a jacuzzi and a sauna. And I was just renting a room from some of the condo owners there. Two of them. I went from one, I stayed a year with a lady named Valerie. Then I moved to a couple that lived there who wanted to rent out a room in their condo. And I had guitarist over, Jeff Flinsky, for a date. There was also a gym there. It was an incredible deal. I mean, I look back and I think what an incredible deal it was that I was just renting a room on this beautiful condo resort complex with streams running through it, and it was incredible. Tracy Austin lived there. You could go out to the jacuzzi, and there's Tracy Austin, soaking her injuries in the jacuzzi. And it's pretty neat, but I was being spied on by the Palos Verdes police even back then because I saw Steve Eberhard in the rec room there one day, and he didn't acknowledge me, but he was there with three of his friends, and so they were spying on me back then. And then 10 years later, they're pointing their guns at me. You see, men are very jealous when women start. They believe that they work really hard and they put up with a lot. I mean, Steve Eberhard was a good student. I wasn't, And so they couldn't understand why I was doing so well. They couldn't understand why I was doing. They wanted to bring me down. And so these people at these, I was being gang stalked, I believe, now looking back in 1982 at this Nautilus gym. I was being gang stalked. People were hearing that I was working out at that gym. And so that's where the problem started. I was being gang stalked at that gym, and rumors were going around about me because that's the way Palos Verdes community is, this wealthy community. And people just wanted to destroy me for whatever reason. I was given mushrooms by this guy named Kim Lynette, who invited me to lead me to believe he had no girlfriend and he was looking for somebody to live with him in his house in Hermosa Beach. And so he had me over and provided me with this hallucinogenic mushrooms, that experience I'd never had. And that pretty much ruined my future. I've got to say, it ruined my future. It was an evil setup. I was being set up for to be slapped down. Whatever reason, some person hated me. I think I knew who was the mastermind behind it, but I'm not going to say who it was because that person eventually got a restraining order against me. I'm not going to mention who she is. But yeah, there was gang stalking of me down there. There was this woman, Lisa Erickson, who was the Miss Tush model of 1978, my graduating class year, in Hermosa Beach. She was named Miss Tush. And she was messing with me in my head at that gym. And she and her friend Jennifer Bryan, they lived together, were leading me to believe that they were lesbians, and they were messing with my head. And, I felt stalked there. I felt like they were aware of me, and I felt that people had talked about me, and they were trying to get something going with me there. And gradually I'd see people from Palos Verdes High School at that gym, Terry Green, Kim Lynette, and I think there was somebody else there too. There were a couple other people. But that was my downfall, is going to that gym. That's where all the bad things happened. There was bad seeds planted in my mind and my life that caused me future problems. And the police got took that and ran with it when I started having problems because of those things that happened there. And all I can say is that I was tripped up a little bit in life because of those mushrooms. It caused me to make bad decisions, to lose my job at Epson America, and I found myself in a homeless situation, and that's when the police took over and just continually slapped me down and slapped me around and pointed their guns at me, completely wanted to, take that former life away from me that was witnessed at the Rancho Palos Verdes condo resort by Steve Eberhard. Wanted to completely take that life away from me, that I was doing well, that I had a job, that I was dating musicians like Jeff Linsky, I'd have over there for a date. Wanted just to destroy my life. They were jealous of me because I was doing so well. So that's the way that I interpret it. And then 10 years later, in 1992, Steve Eberhard is pointing his gun at me. Because I took my new scooter out for a ride in Palos Verdes. I wasn't doing anything illegal or wrong. I was just taking my scooter around my birthday, up there on a beautiful day, enjoying having transportation. And, I gave him a thumbs down in the speed trap. He shouldn't have come after me, in my opinion. But he did, and I stopped, and I looked, and Steve Eberhard was coming towards me. And at that point, I had just knew that his friend had screwed my mother, who she got divorced. And I just felt, oh, wow, these guys are bad news. And I decided to try to just leave Palos Verdes. I didn't think that they would do what they did, but they ended up pointing their guns at me. So I got 205 hours of community service. They wanted me to stay out of Palos Verdes, basically. And so that's what happened to me. The psychiatrist there in Malanga Cove Plaza, her daughter, I went to play in the orchestra with her for 4 years. So they were my enemies. And I didn't know it. I didn't realize they were my enemies, and they didn't like me. And I think that was part of the mastermind of the gang stalking of me at the gym. And so anyway, when I had the mushrooms offered to me, that was the end of me. That was the end of me because it did something to my mind that was not good. And it made me it caused me to make decisions like wanting to go back to school again, quitting my job at Epson America, and just not tending to paying bills like I should have, taking chances I shouldn't have taken. And all I can say is that I contributed to the Palos Verdes community in many good ways, and I don't feel that I deserve to be treated that way. That's all I really have to say. I don't want to get into the psychology of the cult-like activities of the Palos Verdes community. But by now, many of them, my age, are, history there. And I don't think Steve Eberhard works up there in the police department anymore. I mean, I'm about to turn 60, so I'm just going on about how I was doing really well in the early 80s, on my way up in life, and I was doing very well. And then I feel that the Palos Verdes alumni there offered me mushrooms and caused me to fall. I didn't know the dangers of mushrooms. I thought of them as a natural thing, that big deal, they're mushrooms, big deal. I didn't think of them as anything dangerous. I didn't know much about mushrooms. I'm not blaming them, we're all responsible for our decisions. I just was naive about it, just like Eve was in the Garden of Eden. Naive, except for no one ever told me, don't you dare take those mushrooms, because if you do, da-da-da. No one ever told me about that. So it's not like God warned me about mushrooms. I didn't know much about mushrooms. To me, just you think about them as being from the earth. They're not going to be anything worse than just a little bit of euphoria. I didn't think about them as being harmful to my health, but they were. And they're dangerous. And so it's like Eve in the Garden of Eden accepting a temptation from the devil.